This is Shane Wood, a professor of New Testament at Ozark Christian College.
Dr. Shane Wood. Shane, great to see you. Welcome to Exegetically Speaking, your first time to be with us.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks for having me.
So you're at Ozark Christian College. Where is that located?
Yeah, Joplin, Missouri. So we're Netflix famous now after that tornado documentary just came out.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay. All right. So you guys made it into the big time, I guess.
apparently.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I mean, congratulations. You did your PhD at the University of Edinburgh. How did you get started reading biblical Greek?
It was actually 25 years ago or so here at Ozark Christian
No, I'm
College.
sorry. You're not old enough for that. Yeah, that give
Ah,
me something that I can believe. Come on.
19 years old, sitting in my Greek 1
Oh,
class.
wow. Okay. All right. So what made you take Greek? I mean, what was there about Greek that said, okay, I've got to take this as a young college student?
Yeah, it was this opportunity to read God's word in the language that He chose to give it to us. So for me, it was the gift that God gave us. It was a way of drawing closer to His chosen vehicle.
Did you take some Hebrew as well along the way?
Yep, 3 years of Greek and 1 year of Hebrew. So
Okay.
yeah.
So you feel like you're more proficient today in one or the other language?
Oh, definitely Greek over Hebrew, but still love to pull out the Hebrew Bible and wrestle with the text as well.
Yeah. Hey, today we're going to look at Revelation chapter 20, verse 3. Revelation's Greek is kind of interesting in so many ways. What's happening in chapter 20 of the book of Revelation? Give us a little context, and then we'll
Yeah.
jump into verse 3 of that chapter.
Yeah, chapter 20 begins with the binding of Satan and the imprisoning of Satan. So this angel descends in verses 1 and 2, binds and locks him up. Then you have this mentioning of the 1,000 years in
Hmm.
verse 3. And then by the end of verse 10, Satan has been cast into the abyss, into the lake of fire, never to return.
So, I mean, it's a pretty dramatic chapter, right? I
It
mean, at
is.
the end of it. Now, I need to say, as we're going through this, that you've written a book about the book of Revelation entitled Thinning the Veil, Encountering Jesus Christ in the Book of Revelation. It's published by InterVarsity Press. And you can hear us on our sister podcast, The Stone Chapel, talking a bit more about that. But you have a section at the very end of the book where you look at the numbers, and you got the idea of 4 and 3 and 7 and 12 and those key numbers. But you also have the number 1,000 here. What do you think the 1,000 represents? Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah. In the book of Revelation, I always teach my students you don't measure the numbers, you weigh them. They have a symbolic weight to them.
Hmm.
And the number 10, going back to Daniel 1, was symbolic of a time period of suffering or persecution through which God proves to be faithful. And the 1,000 years is a trinity of tens. And so it's gathering the attention of the tension of the Christians that they're experiencing at the time,
Yeah.
but it's also pointing them towards God's faithfulness at the same time.
Yeah, it's 10 times 10 times 10. So
Yeah.
sometimes there are multiplications, not just additions, like 24 is 12 plus 12. But you got lots of numbers that are symbolic there, and you're hard pressed to push them. The other thing I try to get people to see is that, particularly in the ancient world, big numbers are about the extent of what they can imagine.
Yeah.
I can remember, the idea of a millionaire just seemed to be, oh, wow, that's so far out there. Now we're talking about lots of billionaires, right? And we're talking about our national deficits into the trillions of dollars. I mean, nobody can even imagine those kind of things. So the numbers there are just sort of just the extent of what they can imagine at some
Yeah.
level. So what's happening here that you want to draw our attention to? There's just a little 3 letters, it seems
Yeah.
like, that you're wanting to focus on. What does 3 letters give us?
Yeah, in the last half of verse 3, you have this announcement that after the 1,000 years, and the 3 letters you're referencing is day, this it is necessary,
Hmm.
or he must be loosed for a short time.
Yeah, yeah.
But that word day is this impersonal verb that usually is coupled with an infinitive, but it's an impersonal verb that in Greek literature, even prior to the New Testament, came with this idea of like a divine providence or of or even fate. But when the
Mm,
Septuagint started using it, it wasn't this impersonal divine providence. It was this movements of Yahweh, this personal touch or motion or will of God. So in Daniel 2:28, you see this word being used in the context of what must take place
mm.
in the context of King Nebuchadnezzar's vision. What I love about it in Revelation 20, verse 3, is that it brings a character that's not been spoken in the text to the forefront, or at the very least, it drops a morsel, drops a little breadcrumb
Yeah.
that within the Greek text, we can see God's will or God's presence is involved in what is happening.
Now you get that not because you have the word theos there, which is the word God, but just simply because of the sort of the nature of those verbal interactions, that it is necessary for him to be released for a mikron chronon, just a brief time.
Yeah, and the other like Kenneth Bass and Mark Reasoner have traced the use of this impersonal verb through Luke Acts to try to even say like this isn't just history being retold. This is the divine movement of God within history. There's a divine necessity to different movements that are happening. And in here in verse 3 of Revelation 20, it's not just that Satan is released, it's that there is a divine will behind the release of Satan.
Okay, so we could go to the next level and say, so why is Satan released? We got the sucker and he's in the pit, right? He's shut up, he's sealed over, he's pretty much neutralized, but he has to be released.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the question that really grabbed a hold of my heart 15 years ago when I was at Edinburgh. Why must Satan be released? Divine necessity. And I make the argument in the book, Thinning the Veil, he must be released to march in God's triumphal procession. I mean, what I'm doing there is I'm grabbing in imagery from the Roman world to help explain some of the details of Revelation 20. Like he is released after the 1,000 years were ended, verse 7, which is a very strange, if you think, if amillennials or premillennials, if they think the 1,000 years ending is Jesus' second coming, then his release is after Jesus' second coming, which is very strange. But Satan is, in verses 1 through 3, he's also bound, manacled, and imprisoned. But one of the strange things in verse 7 is he's released from his prison, but it never says he's released from his chains. So you have this image of Satan marching in chains, which was a climactic moment in a Roman triumphal procession, where Roman triumphs, they were only celebrated after a major military victory. And you would have the citizens of Rome would come wearing robes in white, like we see in Revelation 19 with the rider on the white horse and his army with white robes. And they would come to look at the spoils of war paraded, but they were all looking for the moment when the chief enemy leader will be bound in chains and marched to eventually his execution, which is the other detail in verses 7 through 10 that's interesting.
Yeah.
Satan gathers them for war, but there is no war. The fire comes down and just wipes them out, almost like a sacrifice on Mount Carmel type of illusion.
Yeah. By the breath of his mouth they are slain. It's an interesting idea that he has to be released because he is being, in a sense, marched to his death.
Yeah.
And part of it is for us, prison is the end. We take a criminal, throw him in prison forever. But in fact, in the Roman world, a prison was just sort of a holding place until you figured out what you're going to do with these people.
Especially a chief enemy leader. They would actually in them for years, holding them to be able to keep them to march in the triumphal procession. So that parallel of 1,000 years in prison matches the imagery as well.
Yeah. Interesting here that you have a divine necessity. After these things, it is necessary for him, that is, the Satan, the Satan, to be released, but just for a mikron chronon, a little time, for a little time. And that is a great reading of that text. Shane Wood, thanks for being with us today on Exegetically Speaking.
My pleasure.
I'm always amazed at the excellence of Greek skills among faculty and writers who did not study at Wheaton College. Now, to be honest, there's a lot of excellence out there in many places, but if you want most excellent, then head to Wheaton College. Check the show notes in today's podcast, and they'll take you to the links to modern classical languages and to the Master of Arts in Biblical Exegesis. Get started today. Thanks to Phil Keke for our music. Thanks to our Wheaton-based staff, anchored by John Lansma, for their help in producing this podcast. Thanks especially to my wife, Kathy Capes, for editing the audio. It's a labor of love. Until next time, I'm David Capes. Thanks for listening.